In Texas, they've only got the Brazos River. And they like a tune with wow and zip, and it's something with some bip, yip, and it rhythm has them rolling on the floor. When they first heard some blue notes, somebody played a few notes, and the Texan asked for any more. How I'd love a chart of how they brought the art of bebop to the heart of Texas. Bebop, mambo, samba, conga too. Day by day the urge is stronger to give those guys who don't like fun around one big Texan rhythmic run around. Give them something to collapse about when those cowboys flap their chaps about deep, 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 deep in the sleepy heart of Texas.
But while he was busy in America being a star turn, the world of British theatre was changing. The well-made drawing-room play was swept aside by the angry young men of the royal court. The revolution was like the one Coward had caused 30 years earlier with the Vortex, but he simply couldn't come to terms with it.
Nowadays, a well-constructed play with a beginning and a middle and an end is despised. A light comedy whose sole purpose is to amuse is dismissed as trivial and insignificant. Since when has laughter been so insignificant? No merriment, apparently, must scratch the grim, set patina of these dire years. We must just sit around and wait for death, or hurry it on, according to how we feel.
Well, I understood it absolutely, but he pitched into people like myself, saying we were all badly dressed and we didn't know how to behave ourselves, and we all dropped our H's and everything, which wasn't entirely true. But, and he went, I think there were about 3 weeks of them, and finally I did get slightly fed up with it, and I wrote him a note, and I said, you know, we're all in the same trade, and I think you should leave us alone because there's room for you and there's room for us. And I had this marvellous letter back from him, and he said, you know, you're absolutely right. Very vulgar and common of me, and I shouldn't talk like that at all.
Noel Coward went to great lengths to try to patch up things with Osborne, but the damage was done. He was reviled for his elitist views, even though he was now recanting.
There's room for everything in the theatre. I think there's still room for a drama or a comedy or play about kitchen sinks if necessary, or tramps, or that's fine, providing they're good enough. I also think that there's still room for a charming upper middle class family who have hearts and limbs and feel and think just the same as anybody else does, and even dukes and duchesses. There are still a few extant.
Coward was now on the wrong side of the dilemma he'd foreseen 20 years earlier in his play Present Laughter, where a successful older playwright, another persona for Coward, was faced by an earnest young writer.
What you don't realise is that the theatre of the future is the theatre of ideas.
That may be, but at the moment I'm occupied with the theatre of the present.
And what do you do with it? Every play you appear in is exactly the same. Superficial, frivolous, and without the slightest intellectual significance. You have a great following and a strong personality, and all you do is prostitute yourself every night of your life. All you do with your talent is to wear dressing gowns and make witty remarks, when you might really be helping people, making them think, making them feel.
There can be no two opinions about it. I'm having a most discouraging morning.
Coward continued working well into his 60s and wrote the same character into his 1965 play, Song at Twilight, with which he had a modest success. Through the aging playwright Hugo Latimer, Coward can at last discuss an issue of great concern to himself.
According to the law in England, homosexuality is still a penal offence.
In the light of modern psychiatry and in the opinion of most sensible and unprejudiced people, that law has become archaic and nonsensical.
Nevertheless, it exists.
Well, it won't exist much longer.
Maybe so. But even if the actual law ceases to exist, there will be a stigma attached to the love that dare not speak its name in the minds of millions of people for generations to come. It takes more than a few outspoken books and plays and speeches in Parliament to uproot moral prejudice from the Anglo-Saxon mind.
He raises a theme, and we see that he feels something strongly about it, and the issue really is that the character, Hugo Latimer, admits that his life would have been happier, that perhaps he would have been a better writer had he been able to admit this. But he didn't, and he couldn't. But still, Coward is sticking, even at the end of his life, very much to the issue of himself, which was his one big, bright idea. His great creation was Noel Coward.
At retirement age, Noel Coward, the mythical figure, was making a comeback. He received an enormous boost when Laurence Olivier invited him to direct a revival of his 1924 play Hay Fever at the National Theatre. His frivolous 20s style proved well suited to the 60s.
Methods? What methods?
Well, you're far too pleasant to occupy yourself with the commonplace.
And you spoil yourself by trying to be too clever.
Thank you.
Anyhow, I don't know what you mean by the commonplace.
Oh, you mean you want me to explain?
Not at all.
Very well, I will.
I shan't listen.
You pretend not to, but you'll hear every word really.
Oh, you're so inscrutable and quizzical, just exactly what a feminine psychologist should be.
Yes, Aunt.
You frighten me dreadfully.
No, darling.
Oh, don't call me darling.
Oh, that's unreasonable. You've been trying to make me the whole evening.
Oh, your conceit is outrageous.
Not conceit at all. You've been firmly buttering me up because you want a nice little intrigue.
How dare you?
It's perfectly true. If it weren't, you wouldn't be so cross.
I think you are insufferable.
Oh, Myra, dear Myra.
Oh, don't touch me.
Oh, come along. Let's have that nice little intrigue. The only reason I've been so annoying is that I love to see things as they are first and then pretend they're what they're
Yes,
not.
words, masses and masses of words.
Yes, well, they're great fun to play.
I am glad you think so. Personally, they bore me stiff.
Myra, don't be statuesque.
Yes, let go of my
You're
hand.
charming.
Let go of
I
my
won't.
hand. You will.
Oh.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
The revival was an instant success and transformed his fortunes again. The press and public seemed surprised at just how good a writer he was.
I think people realise that he isn't that Saturday afternoon coach party playwright that we have been given to believe existed. He's he's an infinitely more complex, infinitely more satisfying, infinitely more modern writer than that.
More of his early plays were revived, and Coward found himself a fashionable celebrity again. In 1969, the Savoy hosted an extravagant 70th birthday party for him, and a number of illustrious colleagues and friends turned out to pay tribute. Further honours followed. He was finally knighted in 1970.
It might go to my head terribly, and I might cut everybody dead, but I think it's unlikely.
Thank you, sir.
But his health was already beginning to fail, and he had a succession of illnesses.
I mean, he said to me once that they're insisting on exercise, walking. And I said, well, quite right, too. He said, I don't like it. I don't like exercise. He said, my idea of a good afternoon's exercise is 50 Turkish cigarettes and a box of marron glacé. When I last saw him, it was it's the first time I'd really seen him cowed because he was on sticks. And he said, I've just had a huge stone taken out of my kidneys. It's so large, I'm taking it round to Fabergé to have it munted. And which I thought was rather stylish.
He went back to Jamaica to die, and finally, in 1973, he suffered a fatal heart attack. He was buried at Firefly in a private ceremony, attended only by local friends, his secretary, and his partner of 30 years, Graham Payne. He had no other family.
Well, I just miss him, period, you know. He was such good company to be with. Never depressed for long, here he was. He covered up very, very quickly. And he was such good company. Just about the best friend I ever had in my life. Great man.
Quite a lot of people said, what a pity that I wasn't more significant. But that never worried me because I didn't really particularly wish to be significant. I liked to be contemporary and bright as a button, but I don't think I was all that keen on being significant.
In 1984, Noel Coward was remembered in a service at Westminster Abbey, where a stone was unveiled in Poets' Corner commemorating his life.
And that's the happiness I've known alone. I travel alone. Sometimes I'm east, sometimes I'm west. No chains can ever bind me. No remembered love can ever find me.